Welcome to the Future Jam. I'm here with Harrison.
Hey there.
And a special guest, Ryan.
Hey.
Do you want me to use your last name?
I'm famous anyway. Go ahead and use my last name.
Ryan Sir.
Whoa.
Wow. And Ryan is, from my perspective, he's from Best Buy fame. I worked with him for 4 to 5 years.
Well, you got to understand. I mean, I was at Best Buy for just shy of a decade. All right. I was there for a very long time. And I worked very closely with a lot of good people there. And, the company's changed quite a bit since I left in 2013, I think.
Where are you at now? Because you got some exciting stuff going for you now.
From there, and this ties back into our subject today, which is the future of amusement parks and so on. Since 2003, I had been running the fan site for Kings Island, this website called KI Central.
Wow.
Before that, it was PKI Central when it was Paramount. And through that, I did a lot with the park and helped them with a lot of different projects.
And in case everybody's wondering, Kings Island is like one of the biggest parks in the country, right?
Right. It's arguably the biggest in the Midwest. So, and it's perfectly located. I mean, north of Cincinnati is close to Dayton, Indianapolis, Charleston, West Virginia, and so on. So they draw 3 million people a year, and only a handful of parks in the country can say that. Obviously it's no Magic Kingdom, but they're only open 6 months a year with augmented Winterfest, of course, this year.
And then you got Cedar Point up north,
right?
So, we have, a really cool thing going on where we basically have the tale of two cities kind of thing, but it's like a tale of two amusement parks where Cedar Point plays off of Kings Island, it seems like. Each one is trying to outdo the other.
Correct.
Well, they're the same company now.
You're right.
They are the same company.
That.
But it brings back, but it brings back an interesting point. So let's go back to 1998, 1999. We had Paramount's Kings Island. Paramount was owned by Viacom, so Paramount was owned by a $1 billion company, and therefore Paramount Parks were. Cedar Point was owned by Cedar Fair, it's still a limited partnership. For those of you who don't know, it's basically like a publicly traded company, except there are a couple legalities and taxes involved that are different, but much smaller. Well, they were competing for the heart of Ohio, for the Columbus market, essentially. And that's why in 2000, you saw Millennium Force at Cedar Point, and then what did you see at Kings Island? Anyone remember?
In 2000?
In 2000.
Son of Beast?
Son of Beast.
Oh,
so
that's right.
That was their response. In fact, the entire Action Zone expansion, which was, in the late 90s as well as the early 2000s.
I think was part of that.
Yeah, which is now Drop Tower.
That's right.
It was all part of this coaster war that was between the two.
And there's like a worldwide coaster war almost as well.
There was, but you know what? At this time, it was very much focused on Kings Island and Cedar Point. All right. So in 2000, we got Son of Beast and we got Millennium Force, both of which at the time, I mean, the fate of Son of Beast, for those of you who do know, Son of Beast lasted for about 9 years and is now gone.
And that was the first coaster with the wooden loop, right?
So it's the first modern looping coaster. So
it was not a wooden loop, though. Everything was wood except for the loop, basically.
The track for the loop was wooden.
Was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was the same stuff. So
it was like the most minimum requirements to get his book for that kind of.
If you want to talk about the future of wood coasters, the definition is pretty thin. And Kentucky Kingdom has a company called Rocky Mountain Coasters, which built a new one down there. Was it Storm Chaser? Yeah, Storm Chaser. And that one's all steel, but they build a lot of them out of wood and say that they're wood coasters, but they're
so it's like a loophole kind of.
But they're great rides. But so in 2000, we got the two of those. Son of Beast was, from a marketing standpoint, very successful. Millennium Force, from a marketing standpoint, was exorbitantly successful.
It's super highly critically acclaimed. I was doing a little bit of research on just the modern and future amusement parks, and Millennium Force, I was surprised, was among the top on all these different lists. I'm like, okay, there's this place in Tokyo, there's this place in Japan, there's this place in California, and then all of a sudden at the top of the list, a place in Ohio. Hardly anyone even knows about Ohio.
Right, and Cedar Point is world renowned. And honestly, if you go to Florida or California and say you're from Ohio, they'll ask if you've been to Cedar Point if they're into this thing.
Yeah.
So what you're referring to is actually there's this award ceremony every September called the Golden Ticket Awards, which is presented by Amusement Today magazine, and they have their staff vote on about 50%, and then people who subscribe to Amusement Today, which is the real coaster dorks and people in the industry for the most part. Everybody gets a cast a vote on best new ride, best steel coaster, and so on. on. And Millennium Force won Best Steel Coaster for quite a while, and it was recently eclipsed by another Cedar Fair property, this ride called Fury 325 at Carowinds near Charlotte, North Carolina.
I'm not familiar with this.
It's 325 feet tall. It's manufactured by this company called B&M, who also did Diamondback and Banshee at Kings Island. I haven't been there yet to ride it, but from what I understand, anybody who's ridden it, that's their number one ride in the world.
And that's a hyper coaster, right?
It's a giga coaster.
Giga coaster.
What does that mean?
So a hyper coaster is anything that is over 200 feet, or 200 feet to 299 feet. And then a giga coaster is 300 feet to 399 feet.
Wow.
And then 400 feet and above right now is a strata coaster. And we we really haven't been beyond that. So that brings out the next point. So Kings Island took a different route. They went more towards the movies, and you got things like Italian Job Stunt Track, which is now Backlot Stunt Coaster. But Cedar Point went a certain route. They built this ride, Top Thrill Dragster, which is 420 feet tall.
Wow.
So it launches 120 miles an hour, goes straight up 420 feet, spirals down, and that's it. It's about a 15-second ride. So in that, it's always garners long waits, by the way. But
I remember actually getting there. I just so happened to go to Cedar Fair. I've only been there one time, but it just so happened to be like the year that coaster came out.
Yeah.
And I remember I never did it because it was so new that the lines were so long. I wasn't going to wait 4 hours to ride this thing.
Right.
But what I thought was really funny was this thing, the whole point, it's super short. So it just launches you at like 100 and something miles per hour straight up. It's like basically a 90-degree turn. And you go straight up and then over. Well, they didn't have this thing completely calibrated right in the beginning. So some people got an extra thrill. They would go up and almost make it over that little turn at the top. And if you've seen it, you know what I mean, the turn at the top. It wouldn't quite make it. And then they would get to ride it backwards down that freaking thing, which I'm sure was crazy.
You know what's surprising about that? It's called a rollback. That's the industry term. It's a rollback in it, and it's that doesn't even break down the ride. It'll just launch it again, and that happens every day. Like, I mean, not necessarily to the public, but in the morning when the thing's cold, it's just not going to make it.
See, I think
they're designed around that, right?
Oh yeah. So you don't even have to get off. They'll just launch you again and try it again. If it rolls back, they'll try it again. It's completely safe, and it's very rare. So people who are especially like the coaster enthusiasts, if they see this stuff, they love it.
Oh, I bet.
I mean that's one of those things, and from a marketing standpoint, it was pretty good. But you got to realize they start whittling away people at this point. So when you have a really tall coaster, especially with like loops. It cuts away a certain degree of the demographic. So some people are afraid to go upside down. And it's mainly young people. Some adults will not ride things. They'll ride something that's 500 feet tall as long as it doesn't go upside down. And that's where you start eliminating people. And then you got 315, I think, feet for Millennium Force. And that's really tall. And some people want to do that. Some don't. And then you got Top Thrill Dragster, 420 feet tall, and you've got this launch. And it's the launch, if you've ever seen it, is intimidating to watch. I love that ride. But, you start whittling away more people. So the question became, how much taller can you go? And so Top Thrill Dragster was topped. It was topped by this ride called King to Ka at Six Flags Park in New Jersey.
I've heard of that.
And that's 435 feet tall. It goes 135 miles an hour, I want to say, and it's got like a camel hump at the end. It's essentially the same ride, though. And no one's, with the exception of some like weird things that are arguably coasters, no one's really gone taller than that.
Taller than 435 feet?
Yeah. There's this thing in Orlando that they're planning that's going to be really tall, but if you look at the plans, it's like a tower, and it takes forever for it to get to the bottom.
I think I've seen that. It's like a coaster that wraps around the tower as it goes down.
Exactly. So, in that's kind of going to market to that demographic, but it's not going to be as like scary necessarily as King to Ka.
That demographic you're talking about is the thrill seeker demographic.
But let me ask you this. What's more profitable for Cedar Point? If the three of us go to Cedar Point and we go there for a day and, we ride this stuff, we'll wait 4 hours for Top Thrill Dragster and so on. Or is it, Mike, his wife, and their two kids that are 7 and 8 years old go there all day in Planet Snoopy, and they're buying blue ice cream and meals and souvenirs. That's the capturing the family demographic is the way that it needs to go, and that's why you get things such as.
Does it need to go that way, or do they just go that way because it's profitable? That's the thing. Like in the future,
you know what? I'm not saying
what's more important.
Well, I'm bringing this around because we'll talk about the future where we're going in a second, but that's why we got things such as like Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. So Mystic Timbers is this wooden coaster. It's a very small layout. It's a short ride. It's very intense. There's no loops. It's not a record breaker. It's nothing like that, but it's a solid ride. And it's that a 10-year-old and a 50-year-old can both agree on it, and anybody in between. So that's where we're sitting right here, right now.
So it's like a moderate coaster, and it reaches the widest amount of the widest demographic. So people, it has a further reach.
So if you and I wanted to go to Kings Island to ride that, we could, and it wouldn't be like we're riding a kiddie ride. If two parents and their 12 and 10-year-old kid want to go there and ride that, they can do that, and it's not too thrilling. Like, you got to hit that sweet spot.
Now, one of the things I brought up when I asked you to come on was I had a couple questions, and one of the questions I thought about was, how do we improve something that we see? Well, I'm not sure if it's something that's a problem for everybody, but to me, it's a problem. So every time I go to Kings Island or one of these amusement parks, people bring their kids along, and then the kids force us to ride all these cheesy rides and all these little rides, and we have to do what the kids want to do. We can't go off, and if we split off, we always feel bad. We always feel terrible because we split off from the group and we're off having a good time while somebody has to stay there with the kids.
Well, okay, so there's two answers to that. First of all, if the kids are really small, there's a pleasure in itself. And like, if you're like the uncle, it may be a different, but if it's your kid and you're taking them on, the character carousel, there's a pleasure in that. There really is. But if,
I understand
if the kids are a little bit older, that was actually kind of one of the things they brought up when they announced the Italian Job stunt track in 2004 going into 2005. So it was one of those things where a family can enjoy this together. And I think they never really specifically said this with Mystic Timbers with any of the releases, but I think that that's kind of what they were going for. And they had the little thrill thing at the end with the shed and so on, which they obviously were kind of trying to keep moderate. I saw one kid when I rode that personally that was loved the ride, was horrified of the shed. It was adorable. It's this little girl, probably 7 years old, and she had her head down, was crying. Her dad was, he had arms around her.
It's nice to have like all these like family friendly things, but it's fun. I look forward to being like a dad here sometime soon. Who knows, maybe 5-10 years. I don't know. But I think one of the fun things is going to be how am I going to get my kid to, take that leap from the racer at Kings Island to the beast. And I remember my grandma was the one that got me to get on the beast for the first time, because I was young. I was doing the beastie, and the beastie, if you're familiar with it, not too crazy, but it's actually pretty crazy because the bar is really loose. But I remember her being able to basically trick me to get on the beast. And so I see just like a thrill in its own. If you're not the one being thrilled by the ride, just the fact that you get to share that experience with someone else and kind of help them, whether you have to trick them like my grandma or actually, talk someone into it and encourage them and help them through that, is a fun in itself.
Now I have the exact opposite view of that. I too was traumatized by the beast. My family.
It'll do that.
And just in case anybody's wondering, the beast is it still the longest wooden roller coaster in the world?
7,359 feet of southern yellow pine.
And that thing flies. Ride. It shakes. It trembles. And it has some hairpin turns. And it has some really steep hills. It's a fun ride. There's tunnels. It's a scary ride even to this day. Like, it doesn't have loops and it doesn't have corkscrews or any of that thing.
I would pit it up against any other ride at night, though.
Oh, it's the best ride at night.
For sure.
But the thing is my dad forced me to ride this before I was ready.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And it freaked me out. And from that point on, I would say almost 10 years long, I was terrified to ride any ride from there on out.
Yeah.
And then finally, I got up enough courage and I started doing it again. And now nothing scares me.
So how old were you? Like, how was it too early?
Probably the smallest you can be to get on the ride.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's like last week.
Last week, yes.
Oh, I guess I would hope not. Jeez.
But going off what I said earlier, I hate having to split up the group.
Right.
Having one adult stay behind with the kids. So my thought is what if the parks came up with some sort of service where there would be almost like a babysitter for the kids. I know it sounds funny. And
robot babysitter.
No, not robot. A real human being. And say maybe one person is in charge of 4 to 6 kids. And the kids wear bracelets with GPS trackers on them, so you know where they're at in the park.
Isn't that what they do to seals?
Do they do that?
Yeah, they put trackers on them. And you wouldn't do this to children?
They inject
those.
those.
You're talking about the animal.
No, not Navy SEAls.
You gotta make sure you keep your eye on those Navy SEAls. You never know when they're gonna sneak up behind you and slit you.
No, I mean, you could drop your kids off. You get to enjoy all the thrills, because once you have kids, you might not be able to ride those thrill rides anymore. And you could drop them off. They get to ride all the kids' rides, and they have.
I see where you're going.
They have
with
a
this.
chaperone.
Yeah.
And maybe you could do half a day, and then you spend the half a day with them and half a day riding thrill coasters.
But how many babysitters would you need to have?
Well,
to do
that's
this?
why
that seems like a crazy amount of babysitters. That doesn't seem economically feasible.
Well, that's how they'd make money off it, because it would be an extra ticket package.
Oh, it wouldn't be free?
It wouldn't be free. No, it would be an extra ticket package. The meal would be included. And
I want to buy this now. You're a great marketer.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Right
So
price.
let me. So I don't know about how, all parks, but I know that Kings Island has a service called Parent Swap, and essentially,
it sounds a little.
You can catch it on TLC Tuesdays at 8. So it's called Parent Swap, and essentially, you watch these kids while the parents get to ride, and then they watch your kids while they get to ride. So it's a much smaller version of what you do. But I can't emphasize more the whole thing of like, you want to spend time with your kids at the park. And I realize that the three of us here, none of us have kids, right? You don't have any kids, do you, Mike?
That is correct.
Okay. So I I don't either, and I'm kind of talking without credibility whatsoever, but I can only imagine. And I've had a lot of friends that have had kids, and I've watched them grow up, and I've loved them as my own, and I've taken that's Kings Island's where I take my kids, and the kids that I love as my own, not my kids. Again, I don't have any, but watching them ride and stuff is there's such a magic to it, and I feel like as guys who don't have kids, we're downplaying this, and honestly, the thing that I've seen with parents for the most part is. They take their kids to Kings Island. It's for their kids. They love doing it. And if there's a day when they want to go there and ride Diamondback and the Beast and so on, you get a babysitter and you go on your own. That's what I've seen so much. But the other thing that no one's brought up yet is there's height restrictions. So the kid, it's got to be 48 inches to ride this, 54 inches to ride that. And even a friend of mine that I'm actually going to spend the day with at the park on Sunday, her daughter just got tall enough to ride Banshee, and she's so excited to take her on that ride. So I get to kind of witness some magic. It's a rite of passage. I mean, kind of like riding the Beast in a lot of ways. But you're tall enough to ride these different rides, and it's almost like you're grown up just a little bit more each time, and there's a magic to it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So what do you think's next?
Let's zip ahead a few years to Tomb Raider the Ride. Did you guys get to ride that as Tomb Raider?
Yes, I did.
So 2002, Tomb Raider the Ride came out. You would go through, you'd enter a cave, there'd be dripping water. You did this whole experience, which was just incredibly magical.
They renamed it as "Oops, I Lost My Cell Phone." The ride.
I didn't hear that, but it sounds like it's plausible.
That was just a part, It became the crypt after they lost the licensing and so on. But so it was a fully immersive experience. Now let's zip ahead to what's going on now. Okay, and let's forget about Mystic Timbers and stuff like that. Let's talk about the big dogs. Let's talk about Disney, Universal, and so on. All right. So what does Universal have? What do you think when you think Universal in today's world?
Isn't Universal? Don't they have Potterland?
They've got Harry Potter. They got 2 of them at 2 different parks that are connected by some train thing.
Hogwarts train. I don't know.
Hogwarts. Yeah. So
Hoggy train.
So each side has its own ride. The one that's over on Islands of Adventure has a weird arm mechanism that goes through, and it's the most incredible thing you could ever experience. If you haven't been
weird there. What? A weird arm?
It's like an arm that holds 4 seats, and it goes on a track.
What?
So you can be
feels like you're being carried.
Well, you're sitting in kind of like a seat with an over-the-shoulder restraint, so it feels like
what?
The seat itself is very normal. But the motions that it can do are incredible because it can go any direction. You can be upside down, right side up, left, right.
So it's
up,
like
down.
a hydraulic arm.
Yeah, but it's
so it doesn't look like an actual physical hand and
arm. No.
Okay, sorry, I was getting like a little too literal. I'm like in my head picturing like an actual.
Think of like a mechanical arm that has, as opposed to a hand, has 4 seats. All right, I think it's 4. And then that arm is on a track. And the track goes through, and you see each scene, and then something comes at you, and then you go away from it. You're supposed to be flying on a broom, I think, the entire time. And you'll fly up to the point where you're nearly upside down, and then come back down. And then they have these things that are like dome screens where you're flying, and then you come at it at the left, and then you might leave to the right, and then other stuff is there, and it messes. I mean, people.
Oh, I bet.
A lot. Fortunately, like I'm not the biggest Harry Potter guy, but I love this ride. So I rode it about 10 times in a row last September when I was down there.
Wow.
But it was several. Like every time I got off, it was somebody had puked, somebody had a panic attack. It's like your body was not built for this. And fortunately, I'm young enough at this point to handle that. But it's incredible and it's immersive, and that's what they're going for. So there's two different worlds. There's that. There's the original one. Which I think is called Hogwarts. Is that correct?
I think so.
So the Hogwarts one is over at Islands of Adventure, and then you can take the train over, which is got LEDs or LCD screens, and it looks like you're looking at different stuff out the windows. And then you go to the other park, and they've got Diagon Alley, which has the bank with the dragon that breathes fire for real.
Oh my gosh.
So honestly, it's and there's a ride in that too. And these rides may be intense for some people, but you can do the full Harry Potter experience without having to ride. If you're afraid to ride, you're too short to ride,
right,
you medically can't ride, you can do the whole experience. And then Disney got on board too. A couple weeks ago, they opened up Pandora based on the Avatar intellectual property.
So that's actually open now.
That is open, yeah.
Wow. I've been hearing a lot of things about it, but I haven't got it. Is that in where the old jungle experience used to be, like the animal?
Wait, was it the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? Is that still around?
That is not. We'll get to that in just a second.
Okay.
That
should be a little bit more read up on this.
Okay, so that's actually at Animal Kingdom, and it's Pandora from.
So Pandora's in.
It's in Animal Kingdom, and there is a ride in there. It's very similar to Soarin', from what I understand. But it's another thing you can walk around and you can be in the Pandora thing. You're immersed in it without a ride experience. And then we talk about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Well, Disney's Hollywood Studios, which is also down there at Disney World, is completely gutted now because they're adding Star Wars Land. And it's going to be a fictional land, a fictional planet that has not been introduced within the canon, from what I understand.
It's called Earth.
No, it's not Earth. I think it's the moon, actually.
Oh, really?
No.
Nice.
But here's the cool thing about it, and only some things have leaked out because Disney has the luxury of announcing, we're going to do Star Wars Land by... if Kings Island did that, they'd be like, wait, what's the,
Let your mind wander because it's going to be amazing.
But Disney, like they didn't even have a set date for it. They're talking about like 2 years from now, I think. But so you're going to go through, there's going to be legions of stormtroopers. Sorry,
yeah.
I'm a Star Trek guy. Which used to be at Kings Island, but stormtroopers would come through, and I don't want to speak on their behalf because I don't know for sure. This is just stuff I've read.
He is the official spokesman for Disney. I'm just kidding.
So anyway, I was talking to Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, yesterday, and he told me
you actually kind of look like a relative of him. Have you seen a picture of him?
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm confusing two guys, but you kind of look like you could be his younger brother.
Bob Saget?
No,
Fabio.
All right, go.
Okay, so Star Wars Land. I mean, we know very little about it, but the ride experience there is going to be interesting because you're going to ride in some sort of pod or whatever they call it in that universe, and it crashes or it gets taken over, but you have to get out, walk a distance, and get back on.
Oh, physically?
You physically have to do that.
That's intense.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it's super neat. I mean,
that actually reminds me of something I was thinking of earlier. They need to implement that kind of stuff. That's such a why not? I can't wait to see how that works out.
And Disney can do it as good or better than anybody else.
They've got billions upon trillions of dollars in their coffers, so they can build whatever they want.
Those greedy mice.
Well, and they're also, the whole Orlando economy is based off this tourism. And we're talking about Orlando, the general area, because I realize they're in Lake Buena Vista. So if any of your callers want to, attack me for that one. Anyway,
you can reach Ryan on his Facebook if you want to shout at him about.
Yeah, but they don't know how to spell my last name, so it's cool.
Oh, you're safe.
But so they're all grabbing for that dollar, so they have to like completely like blow your mind. And Disney's good at forking out money for intellectual property, and they did that as a response to Harry Potter, because both of those sets of parks were going directly in the toilets 10 years ago.
Really?
They were not putting money into Disney World because people would go there anywhere, and they were not putting money into Universal because it was owned by Blackstone, which is an investment group that almost bought Kings Island, by the way.
Tomorrowland wasn't Tomorrowland anymore.
Tomorrowland still
wasn't
looks
that a
like
failed movie?
No, Tomorrowland is the 1981 version of what 2017 would look like. I feel like
it's pretty outdated. I've been saying for years that Disney World or Land, which one's down in Orlando?
Orlando's World.
World. I've been saying for years that needs an update. I went there 5 or 10 years ago, and a lot of the rides look pretty outdated.
Right. I mean, they're beautifully, everything's well painted and maintained. It's just a matter of when you see Disney, you expect excellence, and they have to deliver excellence every time. Now with Universal, let's talk about Universal really quickly and how well this immersion experience is working right now and why it's going to lead to the future. All right. So Universal is going to open a Fast and the Furious ride. All right.
Really?
It's going to be a Fast and Furious ride. They're going to have simulated.
It's not going to be like the Italian Job or anything like that, or is it?
I think it's a clone.
Oh.
No. It's a very similar ride experience to like Spider-Man, and they're going to have simulated acceleration and so on.
Nice.
So you didn't know about that. You knew about Avatar though, and you knew about Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And you know about Star Wars Land. You know. Do you know what the latest ride that opened at Universal was?
Nope.
It's Jimmy Fallon's Race Through New York.
Wow.
Fallon?
Jimmy Fallon hosts this ride, so Race Through New York. It's the same kind of ride mechanism that they have for everything
I didn't know
else.
he had that kind of name and draw.
NBC has a huge stake in the Universal parks, so they wanted that. But so here's the thing: from what I understand, the ride's okay. The queue area is beautiful. It's a really, really good thing. It's something to see, but no one knows about it because it's not over the top. It's not huge. It's not it's not Jimmy Fallon Land. It's a Jimmy Fallon ride.
So is there like a problem with like I feel like one thing that I keep seeing, especially with like a place like Disney World where they're pushing the envelope, it's like, how far can we push it before it's like too far? Because some of the ideas that I was thinking about, because I was thinking, kind of preparing for this, I'm like, how far could we go? Like, where has not been gone before? And kind of thinking about that whole idea of the Star Wars ride where you have to like actually get physically out of your car and get into another one or something like that. I actually thought of something similar but in the same vein. But imagine if you had a roller coaster that the roller coaster was actually amphibious. Okay. So you have a ride. It's all around like a lake or like a river or something like that. And you basically have in the ride itself a fake crash. So you have like a section of it where like you're on the track and then like there's like some sort of like mount function that you can see. Like it's like obviously designed so that everyone in the track sees it, and then everyone starts freaking out. They're like coming around that bend or whatever. They're like, oh my gosh, they're all holding themselves, like holding their like daughter or whatever. I don't know, they're crying. I don't know, maybe it's a little too intense.
So it could be like a Final Destination ride,
kind of. But what ends up happening is it's designed to go kind of like log flume style into the river or lake. And then because it's amphibious, they don't like the first time you ride this, you don't really know this. But if you're like the dad and you're bringing your son, you're like, everything's going to be all right. And then you kind of go off log flume style over like a fake waterfall.
Yeah, I don't hate that idea. And I think it's entirely viable.
I think it could be done. It might be too intense for most, but man, what an experience.
You're talking about a next generation version of something that sort of exists, and in one example is Expedition Everest. Do you remember that one?
Oh no, I don't. I saw about this.
So you're getting towed. You get towed up the hill, and when you get to the top, you see the track ripped to pieces and so on by the Yeti.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then you go backward in a different route. So it's kind of similar to that.
There's LED screens all over the place too, and like there's like a Yeti action kind of.
There used to be a Yeti. It doesn't work anymore.
No Yeti anymore.
I love these rides where something breaks and like it's not part of the ride anymore.
We'll just edit that out.
So to be clear for those who haven't been there, Disney World is wonderful about maintaining, like replacing every bulb and every light. But from what I understand, and don't, and again, I'm not Bob Iger, and I don't know this for sure. But from what I understand, the Yeti itself was somehow part of like the hooked to the foundation of the ride, and they could not replace it or repair it without ripping the mountain apart that took them 10 years ago.
I thought that Yeti was mostly CGI. Obviously, I haven't ridden it, but I saw a video on it, and through the video, it made it look like most of the Yeti action was like a CGI.
Was it a projection?
Yeah, it was like projection. Or sorry, I keep saying CGI
have now.
Oh, see, that explains it. And with sound and shadows and stuff, I mean, you can do so much with like really immersing yourself and. Yeah.
So, I mean, let's we can talk about like what's next at this point.
What's a feasible ride that you can think of that could come next, or maybe possibly they're working on one of these rides? But like, what's something that's feasible in your mind that could possibly be placed into a park right now that you want?
I mean, for me, I would say the perfect ride. I love what they call in the industry dark rides. So dark rides are rides that have they're indoors. They have the animatronics. Often they're haunted houses or whatever. And my favorite ride of all time is Tower of Terror at Disney, and it's based off the Twilight Zone. And you got Rod Serling hosting, and it's like you're in an episode.
Wow!
So it's the immersion thing again. But you go into this thing, and it's an elevator, and it actually goes like forward and stuff. And that's neither here nor there because that's a 20-year-old ride at this point. But to have the individual pods that you ride in, and it doesn't feel like you're very restrained. Like for that, it's just a seatbelt. It's no lap bar or anything like that. But to see different scenes, and if you drop 200 feet or whatever, there's a reason for it. Rather than it's just got a 200-foot hill. That's what I would want to see. I would love to see like an excellent, thrilling dark ride.
Now, more about your ride idea. Would you be seeing like video in the ride? Would there be projected video? Would there be like a story involved?
Yeah, you would be taken on an adventure, and and this isn't too dissimilar from a lot of the things you see down south, in the Florida region and so on. So there would be a storyline. There's a reason why you're there. There's a reason why what you're seeing. And there's a reason why you take that drop. There's a reason why you go do that loop. There's a reason why you do that launch and so on,
Kind of like the Spider-Man ride where there's like a lot of things happening and it kind of moves around with the action and stuff. That's just from my recollection of riding the ride.
So Spider-Man is back to this Golden Ticket Awards that we were talking about, won the Golden Ticket Award for Best Dark Ride for many, many years. And it still might. I think maybe Harry Potter beats it now because that's arguably a dark ride. But you're still in a vehicle that it rocks and stuff, and it pertains to the theming, but it's still a vehicle just to see. There's no launches, there's no drops, there's no loops or anything like that. I would do the two because you can really, with a vehicle that small, you can do anything you want.
So it'd be like a 2-person pod.
I would do like a 10-person, like 2 rows of 5 or something like that.
Wow. So this would be like a big pod then.
Yeah, it would be big.
And would it be sealed off? Would it be like a open air type thing?
You would be kind of like sitting in a box with one of the sides cut out. So you can't see left or right.
So you only can see what's out one side.
You would only be able to see what I want you to see from a designer standpoint.
Would like it be a magician?
And it's not so much, that you can only see out the front. It's just a matter of I don't want you to see the next pod coming around the corner that just made the turn that you.
It's all about the immersion experience.
Exactly.
Like, it's all about being immersed. I really do like the idea. I think there's things that need to be done to differentiate different rides from one another because there's only so many different types of coasters you can do. I mean, after a while, we added 3 loops, 4 loops, 5 loops. After a while, that gets old. So I like the idea of adding unique experiences on top of that. And with a ride like that, you could probably switch up the story or switch up different aspects of the ride over time, so that way it refreshes. So you can refresh it a lot.
Right. I think what you're getting at is just like the reprogrammability. You can kind of change the screens or whatever to change the immersion so that, one like that kind of atmosphere, it's like a box or whatever kind of design. You could change up the calibrations and the programming so that in 2 years it can be the same ride foundationally, but you can reprogram it to have like a little bit of a different experience. Is that what you were kind of talking about?
After a while, these rides can become stale because a lot of people go to these parks like every year, or some people go twice a year.
And you want to have like the resale ability, like the whole like replay value in a video game is super important. Like if you beat a game and you never pick it back up, it's like, okay, that's awesome. But if you have a game like Grand Theft Auto, it's like, okay, you keep coming back to it, and now you're going to like be buying the little like upgrades here and there. And so that's why like I really feel like the digital area is a huge place where amusement parks can really grow. I mean, with like the VR revolution just like on the brink. I mean, we can see the sunrise coming with like the Oculus Rift and I have the PlayStation VR. I can already see just the tip of the iceberg of what those kinds of experiences can give.
Yeah, what do you think of reprogramming rides as far as like changing up the experience? Because after a while, like a lot of rides can become stale.
Well, I think that the thing you guys forgot about is what about a Halloween version and a Christmas version?
Wow, I didn't even think of that. Yeah,
definitely. No, that's great.
So yeah, I mean, 5 years from now, you could rebrand it and it could be a different ride and so. And they've got the motion sims and stuff where they do that now. But having with so many parks, in the Midwest and so on, doing a Christmas event, just having Santa's caper or whatever, which is a family-friendly version of it or whatever, and then a real scary one for the haunt stuff at night.
An April Fool's version if you want to be really meticulous.
An April Fool's version that runs it in reverse,
I guess, you could get really deep into it if you actually created software that could easily be tweaked but there's probably a lot of safety concerns as well, so they probably have to go through a lot of...
Safety, schmancy. Everything's too safe anyway. I think they should just run things right off the cliffs.
Yeah, I agree. No, so there's a company that does something similar to what we're talking about. It's called iWorks, and they do the action theater kind of thing where they tilt seats and so on. And honestly, and this hasn't changed in 20 years, where if you want to put a new video in, at the time it was film, it was 72 millimeter film. You put the new film in there, you throw in the software for the virtual seat, and all the seats do what it says, and it's good, So this if it was going to be a launch as opposed to a hill, or you'd have to do construction. But if we're talking about things that are on video screens, there would be no safety concerns whatsoever, So, side note, have you guys been on the new Tropical Plunge that opened last year at Kings Island?
I have a horror story. So
of that, or
of that,
else?
Yeah, is that the one with the glass door you stand on and it drops you?
Oh, wow. That sounds fun.
My wife and I rode that ride. You stand on a glass or a plastic platform, and it's a trap door, kind of. And you just stand there, and it's just like almost like a steep drop right below you, and it just releases you. You free fall onto that slide.
Oh my gosh.
And you can stand there and look down, and you're just seeing your life flash before your life.
How far is that drop when you enter?
I don't even know, but
pretty far. It's not a straight drop. So I don't.
He's like shivering right now just thinking of it.
So I don't want you to think that like you can crumble at the bottom, because there is a tilt to it.
Oh yeah.
But the free fall sensation goes for about 25 feet. Like if you're into thrilling water slides,
it's intense.
So what's your horror story? Did something happen, or was it just traumatizing to ride it?
It was traumatizing to ride it. Like I looked over at my wife and I'm like, I love you. And if I don't see you again, goodbye.
She's like, Mike, I needed someone to tell me that everything was going to be all right, and you're saying goodbye to me? Oh my gosh.
So I was talking, there's a big convention down in Orlando every November called IAAPA, which is essentially where everybody who's all involved in the industry goes there, and they mingle and they talk. It's a giant convention, and this convention center is one of the largest in the world, second only to Las Vegas, I think. And literally Kings Island would go there to buy a ride. All the manufacturers there. And then I got to meet a lot of the guys who work for this whitewater company at that convention. I was like, so what's it really like to ride those things? I've always heard about them. We're getting one this year. What's it like? Like, well, essentially we lock you in a coffin. And
yeah,
that's always a good feeling.
Fine.
It's horrifying.
It's horrifying.
That coffin part is almost as scary as the actual drop. Just seeing people's reactions going up, they kind of hide it a little bit as you're going up, and then you kind of see it be revealed as you're walking up the stairs, getting closer and closer. And then when you see people's look of terror on their face, you just get this sinking feeling in your stomach, and you're like, that's me, I'm next.
But you know what? Like, okay, this is kind of a tangent, but I just had this idea. And I want to hear what you guys think about this. So, of course, one of the big things with parks, not just water parks, but the actual theme parks with roller coasters and whatnot, is every once in a while you got to go out with the old, in with the new. And I think parks should actually emphasize the out with the old more. And what I was thinking was, when you tear out an old roller coaster, it's going to get destroyed anyway. What is a way, like I was thinking it would be kind of fun to just completely destroy an old roller coaster, like the whole Son of Beast thing. Like, what if they just like loaded up the freaking cart with a bunch of dynamite, sent it through, and then when it went through the loop, just blow that stuff up. And then they're like, okay, hey guys, you know what? Son of Beast had a good run, but this is the end of this ride story. On with the new.
So are you telling me like it would be open until like 1 o'clock that day? No one knows anything. And then next thing you know, they're packing up dynamite.
Well, they could do that, but I would not recommend that. I think it would be better if they were like, hey guys, there's going to be a big old thing. Check it out. And it wouldn't be dynamite because obviously that would kill people. But that idea of, you know what? I think we should celebrate the old technology and like, you know what? Hey, it had a good run. Let's give it a nice little like send off, right?
Everybody loves a big bridge collapse explosion, and everybody loves when they demolish buildings.
Exactly.
So why not? Why not? Who knows? It's a terrible idea.
What? You don't say that.
I see where you're coming from, and like in Las Vegas when they implode like a casino, they make a big deal. There's a fireworks show and everything.
Yeah.
And so with that mentality, absolutely. But the problem though is you have to understand that these parks really belong to the people far more than they belong to the company. So inherently, when you've got your Son of Beast and your racer and stuff like that, or if they wanted to tear something down, there's always a lot of people like, that was the last ride I rode with my dad and stuff like that. So celebrate.
Okay.
So when they do tear down rides, they have to be very careful about it.
Why can't that be part of the experience and be like, hey, you know what? Do it respectfully. I mean, of course you have to like survey all of your options, but there's got to be a way to just like amp that up.
Everybody can go up and take a piece of the coaster themselves. They sell tickets, and you can go up and dismember a part of the coaster. Like, after this is my chunk of wood. I'll put it on my wall in
it's
commemoration.
Only half charred.
So we're gonna get into what we're not really capable of yet, but our vision, like our dream of what could be 30, 40, 50 years from now, maybe not even in our lifetime. But my thought is, going off of Ryan and a couple of things that Harrison has said. So my thought of a future park would be this whole idea of immersion. Like there's tons and tons of thrill rides out there, and I really like the idea of being immersed in something you wouldn't traditionally experience. And there's this technology that's in the works, and it's available to some people in beta. It's not virtual reality, because to me, virtual reality shields you from the world. You're wearing a goggle. You feel that goggle on your face, and it doesn't really exist. You can't really walk around in virtual reality because
it takes you out of reality.
It takes you out of reality.
Right.
So to me, virtual reality can be used in future rides, but what I would like to see is this new Microsoft's developing it right now, and they branded it as HoloLens. Have you seen HoloLens at all?
Yeah, I've heard of it. The closest I've done is the HTC thing.
Okay, that's still virtual reality.
It is, but that's the closest I've done.
That's the closest you've done.
So what you're saying is a little bit on the whole augmented side.
Augmented side. So HoloLens lets you interact with your environment using these glasses. So in the demo they showed most recently, they had an empty sandbox. And when you're wearing the HoloLens, you actually see sand in that box. And you can actually play around in that sand and sculpt things with your hands, and you can interact with that environment.
That idea.
And you physically see sand.
So now, I like the augmented reality. Now, how would that be implemented into the rides?
So my idea is this, is there's all these Star Wars lands and Harry Potter land and all those places, but you can still see like cracks in it.
You can see the seams, yeah.
You can see the seams. There's still, you're not really fully immersed. You know it's a fake experience. You don't actually feel like you're there. You're it's kind of reminding you of these things you've seen in movies, and it's fun and unique and oh cool, there's a building I saw in the movie, or there's a character, it's not the character I saw in the movie, but there's a guy dressed up like the character.
Oh, that's a guy dressed up as a character?
I'm sorry to break it to you.
That's not a real alien?
So with these augmented reality glasses, you could wear them throughout the park and they could just make boring, plain buildings if they wanted to. And when you wear the glasses, you see whatever they want you to see. So if they want you to be in a Star Wars type environment, you are literally in a Star Wars type environment.
I like that idea.
Type environment. You can see all the ships from the movie. You can see characters from the movie. They could even recreate digitally actual characters from the movie, and they can have rides that you can actually be a part of the scene, or you can be involved in it somehow.
Now, the thing is, so we're probably like, I don't know, like 10 years away from like people actually wearing glasses with augmented reality capabilities.
No, this is this year.
No. I understand that the technology exists, but like it'll take a few years for it to become mainstream. So the thing is, that kind of technology would have to wait a little bit before, you know, the like everyone has it. Like everyone has a cell phone now, and what will be awesome, and I love this idea, because when you're sitting in line waiting for your rides, that's one of the like the least immersive parts.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like sitting there like, why am I sitting here? You know, it's like how can you make the line immersive? And when like the whole idea of like Google Glass, or what was the Microsoft thing?
It was HoloLens.
The HoloLens. Like when that becomes mainstream and like it's as common as a cell phone, which I see it to be, making a line actually enjoyable is so easy. And when you have digital versions of things to be able to be implemented, then the limitations business-wise as far as like physical assets can be just manipulated on a whim. And it's great.
Yeah, exactly. Like nobody likes to wait in line, so they can project something in line with you to keep your attention. But yeah, using these HoloLenses, that's Microsoft's term for them, they're augmented reality glasses. You could be a part of a scene from your favorite movie, or
oh my gosh, yeah, I could see the implement.
I hope you guys enjoyed your rant, because I'm about to take the wind out of your sails. Okay, so when we talk about augmented reality, we talk about seeing things that are not there. We're talking about images that are planted into your head. We're talking about visions. We're talking about scenes of movies. If I go to Harry Potter World, the difference between that and watching the movie is that I can place my hands on the bank. I can place my hands on Hogwarts. And I'm using the terms wrong because I'm not familiar with Harry Potter.
Close enough.
These things, yeah, there are cracks in the foundation. There's seams between buildings. But as far as when you're there, it's real. You can see it. You're in front of it. You're in the world. When we talk about like just something that's enhanced into your eye and you see something that's there, it's, to me, once the initial novelty is over, it's no better than watching the movie or the Blu-ray, you know? So to me, I would rather have a physical brick and mortar building I can walk up to, and this is the one. This is the clock tower from Back to the Future, rather than a giant white box where I put on glasses and it looks like it, because I can watch the movie and see something that looks like it on my screen.
Yeah, but technically they could build whatever you're talking about and then augment additional items on top of that.
Why not just build it then?
Well, I mean, there's certain items that
it's too expensive.
It's expensive, yeah. This would make it so smaller parks could do things that maybe they couldn't do before. So that's one.
Well, you know, the thing about smaller parks and bigger parks is, you know, bigger parks are for an experience, and I use that in a loose term in terms of, or actually a very tight term in terms of like Harry Potter World, and smaller parks are about charm. You know, you got Camden Park and places like that where you're not going to get Harry Potter World.
Action Park. That has a lot of charm.
There's that's back, you know.
I did.
That's reopened.
I heard that. I was like, what?
There's a documentary on Action Park. Look it up on YouTube, anybody listening, and it'll make any horrible water park you've ever been to seem like the greatest place on earth. Yeah, to me, and obviously, like, this is just a conflicting opinion, because I acknowledge the fact that there is a lot of possibility with what you guys are coming up with in terms of, okay, we can have a building there with augmented reality, we can have Spider-Man climbing on it or whatever. But I think that it's really going to take away from the spirit of actually physically, you know, when we talk about a building with Spider-Man, it's going to be different than that's the building from the movie and I can walk into it. And a perfect example would be, you rode Spider-Man the ride, right, Mike?
Yes.
Have you been down to?
I have not rode that.
Okay, so Spider-Man the ride, like we mentioned before, is arguably the greatest dark ride out there. You know, I think Tower of Terror is, but this one is voted. So there's a lot of scenes where there's fire and there's smoke and there's all sorts of stuff, and then there's a lot of scenes that's video. Well, the video, they can put anything away, but also the Grouch up there if they want to, you know.
Right.
But nobody talks about, like, did you see that video when Spider-Man went and grabbed this thing? No, because you don't care. You realize it's a projection. They can put anything there they want. You know, and we're so numb to that now. With movies, there's nothing that is not within the realm of possibility with special effects and CG. But when they have an actual thing where a room catches fire or something like that, like with the Mummy.
No, that's
example,
cool. That's cool.
You know, that's where when you feel the flames, you smell the soot, you're in there. You're really, really in there.
The earthquake ride.
Yeah, and Twister even.
Twister, yeah. That's what I meant, Twister, right?
I see where this is kind of going, because I feel like, obviously, we're talking about the future, but I see this as more like me being a guy that likes CDs rather than records. I see you as far as like roller coasters and amusement parks, loving the records. You love the tried and true, the classic. You are going to go for the stuff that's enduring. I want to see the stuff that's going to be like flashy and it's going to be crisp. It's going to be clean and it's going to be cheap. Well, I want to see something expand. And the thing is, like, the downside of CDs obviously is you can just multiply. But the records, like where you're going with, I mean, it's going to be the foundation for sure. But I want to see where it expands to.
Right, I like your analogy, but I think we're talking about the same thing, with two different routes. So
okay.
For you, I mean, I'm not at all taken away. Like, I would want to see, like, if they built like Metropolis and they had like a dude dressed as Superman flying around there on wires. Uh-huh. I would absolutely go there. So I'm not the guy that would drive 200 miles to ride a 100-year-old coaster. I'm just not that guy. I definitely need to be impressed, you know. But for me, it's like it would just be so much less impressive if it was something within my augmented reality of these glasses somewhere that shows Superman flying over rather than a real person.
But the thing is, we can't really grasp what augmented reality is going to be like yet, because none of us in this room has even experienced what augmented reality really is like.
Unlimited possibility.
Exactly.
It's literally unlimited possibilities, and the thing is it's indistinguishable if it's done right from reality. So Star Wars is their beloved movie franchise.
Right.
Me, that's Lord of the Rings. I grew up with Lord of the Rings. That's my Star Wars.
Okay.
So say they built Helm's Deep. Helm's Deep is like this walled fortress. Say they actually built that walled fortress so you can climb up into it, get up onto it. But then you look out and you see like some neighboring city. It takes you out of the immersion. Like, oh, I can see across the state and I'm not at Helm's Deep. I'm at Helm's Deep in California. I can see everything. So with augmented reality, you can still see everything that's around you for the most part, but they can mix the two things together. So like how, you know, good movies where they use practical effects and special effects, like computer effects together, they marry the two, and if it's done right, it looks perfect.
It looks better than if you just chose one over the other.
Exactly. So my thought would be marry the two together. So you're on Helm's Deep,
that idea.
You look over the wall, and in the movie, there's a huge attack on the fortress, and there's orcs, creatures climbing up the wall, clambering up. If you're wearing these VR glasses, you can look over the wall. You're on the actual wall. You can feel it, you can see it, you can touch it, and you look over and you see these creatures climbing up on you. You can't tell if they're real or fake, if they're people in costumes, or if they're actual
So you start swinging your battle axe, and you're not sure if the person's real or not, and then by the end of it, you're a mass murderer.
I'm not.
Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm not going that far, but
No, I know
that's just my idea for a experience outside of just thrill rides.
That is possible with augmented reality.
Now, what's your idea for a future?
Okay. Well, let me retort that first. So, what you're talking about isn't too far from the Harry Potter train then at Universal. Because remember, there are no windows on the train, but there are LCD screens that look like windows, which have images going by.
But LCD screens are flat.
Well, right. But you were talking about a much more advanced version of that idea.
That's right. We're in the future, Mike.
Yeah, you're looking at a television.
Right.
But in the future, we won't.
No, in the future we won't know what televisions are. No, it's. I think I see where you're going with that, and I thought you were going to be a lot more accepting of this piece of technology brings the whole experience to you rather than because I mean honestly I can you can
do that
pop
from
a
your
Xanax
basement.
yeah you can pop a Xanax, put on the glasses and have a great time but
what's wrong with that?
No, I'm for
you don't have the glasses.
True.
It's marrying the two together, like the classic and the future. And if you just went all future, you're right, you can just experience that in your own bedroom using VR glasses. Sure. Yeah, let's just kind of close this out. Thanks for coming, Ryan. What type of plugs do you got for us?
So I want to give a shout out to a couple companies I work with. For those of you in the Cincinnati area, in Westchester, there are two companies that are very special to me that work with on a regular basis. Right on the same property, actually, there's Entertainment Junction, which is the world's largest indoor train display. And you got to check that out. It's not just for kids. It's for everything's handmade. It's the trains are very large. They're G scale. So Google that. It's
it's right
cool.
there in Westchester. I see it all the time.
Yeah, it's right off the highway.
And they have Christmas stuff going on there too, and it's pretty awesome, right?
Christmas is the best time of year there. The Santas are top notch. But on the same property, same ownership group, but it's a completely different concept, is Escape the Room Challenge, which is 4 different escape rooms where you can, work together to solve puzzles and clues to get out. And I'm formally inviting you two to come out and try one of our escape rooms. So get a group of your friends together. I want you to try it out. I want let's do another show. Talk about your experience doing this escape room.
That would be pretty awesome, I think.
So now, if we can't escape, would you let us out so we could at least talk about it?
We'll do the show from in the room.
Oh, okay. We'll bring our stuff with us then.
We'll have to bring sleeping bags, some rations, and
some rations.
Yeah, and then we'll make a whole thing of it.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's so much fun. I do a lot of escape rooms just in my free time because it's just it's so thrilling and none of them are designed to be scary or anything like that. But what we're gonna do is I'll bring you guys out there. You guys can try it. You can see if you get out, and then we'll talk about your experience in the escape room, and then maybe the future of what you guys think you would do 10 years from now if you're building an escape room.
Oh, that'd be so cool. And I have some ideas right now.
And we'll talk about the future of some stuff that is actually coming up with the future of escape rooms as well.
Teaser alert.
Teaser.
Oh, is there going to be a part 2 coming up? Oh, man, we might have our special guest again.
Harrison, do you have anything you want to say for last shout out?
I didn't have anything in mind, but hey, you know what? This was a good time. I need to get back to some amusement parks. It's been a while since I've worked at Kings Island, but it sounds like they're making some cool changes, and it's been a while since I've been down to Florida or California, for that matter, to see some of the others. But you know what? I don't know. It's about time, right?
And guys, we have a brand new Facebook page we launched, and we would like you to hop on there, like the page, and maybe comment and get something generated and ask us questions and give us feedback. We'd love to hear from you. We really would. We kind of want this to become kind of like a community experience. We want to hear from all of you and get lots of feedback.
All right, let's start a conversation.
Yeah, I love conversations, and I think as this grows organically, it could really turn into something. Also, you could find us at The Future Jam on Twitter, at The Future Jam on Instagram, and you could also email us as well at thefuturejam@gmail.com.
And if you can find us, we'll be at the end of the rainbow, and we'll give you a big old shiny pot of gold.
We haven't even talked about jam yet. I thought
you're into jam too.
No, I thought it was like the kind you put on toast.
Right. That's what it's all about. Oh, we forgot.
We forgot that. Okay, so the next jam coming out, just announced from Smuckers, peach raspberry jam coming to a theater near you.
Dun, dun, dun.
See you guys.
In a world